Good morning and welcome. Thank you very much for attending. I'm Jim Comiskey. I'm one of the Board of Directors for South Lake County Fire. And on behalf of the Fire District, we want to welcome you and thank you for taking the time to come and participate and find out what's going on with this issue around the public safety power shutdowns. So thank you very much for taking time out of your day. To start the formalities, I'm going to do some introductions, but before I do so, I wanted to point out a couple of things. The restrooms are on the left or your right-hand side over here. There's a men's and women's room over there. The emergency exits are in the back there and over here. But if you need an emergency exit, there's probably 20 firefighters in here that can help you get out if you need it. So thank you very much for coming. Today presenting is going to be Herman Hernandez. He is a public relations individual with PG&E. That's going to have some really good information for you today. Also with him is Dave Hodgkins, and he's a public safety specialist for PG&E. He's a prior fire service for many, many years, and now he works with PG&E regarding safety aspects of things. We have Supervisor Moke Simons here today. He wanted to address the group early on this morning. And I also need to reach out to Battalion Chief Mike Wink, who put all this together, did a great job in advertising and getting the information out to you folks. So welcome. What we're going to do is we're going to have the presentation, and then we'll have a question and answer period after the presentation, so they could get through the presentation. So if you could save your questions, if it's feasible, to the end would be great. The presentation won't take all that long. And then afterwards, we're going to give you the opportunity, if you haven't, to meet with some of the vendors that have been invited that could help you during one of these public safety power shutoffs. So with that, I'm going to ask Supervisor Moke Simon to come up and say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you also, like Jim did here, for coming out. This is something new that we're dealing with, obviously. PG&E will explain exactly what's going on and why this is happening. We understand that, it is a necessity, but it is also something that affects each and every individual constituent that's going to have their power shut off. So I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out today. Today is just one more day of education on the new reality that we're living with right now in Northern California with the fires in all of California. From the county standpoint, we are looking to address at the board level how to keep government services, buildings open and other things. We're going to have a special meeting tomorrow to talk about generators. It'll also be on the agenda on Tuesday. Those are things that we'll be working on from the county standpoint. I want to thank PG&E for coming here to address our community, to really get the education out there of what's happening, how long the time frames may be, what you should be doing to try and prepare for that. So it's a coordination and a collaboration, but it is something new. As we all know, during disasters and other things, for sometimes you are on your own in the beginning of it sometimes. So individual responsibility is something we can do to educate ourselves and help to spread the word to others, making sure that people understand what's happening and try and really be prepared for it. As a supervisor, you go to bed every night. I see Jim Comstock, our former supervisor here in the audience. You worry about every one of your constituents. And you can't take care of everybody all at once, but at least if you can get the word out there and help them prepare to take care of themselves while they need to, you sleep a little bit better at night. This is a day of hopefully many meetings where we talk about our situations as we move forward through this, but trying to understand how we operate when the power is shut off and keep services going is the most important thing that I wanted to talk about today for the county, and we are looking to try and do that. Hopefully today, Herman will have some answers to your questions when you ask him, but I just want to thank everyone for coming out today. I am going to be here in the beginning of the meeting. I wanted to let you know I will not be here at the end of the meeting. I've got a funeral service I've got to attend on the north side of the lake, but I am available for questions at any time. You can call me. My phone number is 707-533-9615. So if you have questions about what the county is attempting to do, or if you have suggestions, please get a hold of me. But I'll try and make myself available as often as possible. And I really want to thank Mike Wink and the fire department for getting this meeting set up here and really pushing this through so we can educate our community. Thank you for coming out today and being some of the greatest constituents in the county. Thank you very much.
All right, now we'll bring Herman Hernandez up and do the PG&E presentation.
All right, good morning, Lake County. How's everybody doing today? Awesome. I just want to give a huge shout out to Chief Wink and Chief Comiskey for putting this together and really getting it together sooner rather than later in the summer. So can we give them a big round of applause? Thank you so much. And I really, really appreciate Supervisor Simon. This is only my first year of working with PG&E. I was actually born and raised in Sonoma County, went to the junior college, went to San Diego State, came back here, and I've been working in the nonprofit industry for 5 years. But Supervisor Simon has been a huge resource, and I really appreciate all the work that he puts into his community and his dedication to Lake County. I think we got to give him a round of applause. So thank you so much. So my name's Herman Hernandez. I'm the local public affairs representative for Sonoma and Lake County. I have the honor of representing these areas, and it's a lot of work, as you know. I've been here for the last 6 years, and we've gone through a lot, given all the fires that have happened here in Lake as well as in Sonoma in 2017. So we are here really to educate and inform and let you know what a public safety power shutoff is, how you can better prepare yourself. But the most important part of today is that you have to have your own plan. And number two is we can't inform people enough. And there's a lot of community leaders in this room, and we need your help in letting not only your families know to be prepared, but your friends, your neighbors, associations that you're a part of. That is incredibly important and something that I'm hoping we get out of today's meeting. We also have Zachary Correa, who will talk to you a little bit about updating your information on your PG&E My Account. Zach is actually going to be able to do that for you here right now if you haven't already. So before you leave today, make sure to check in with him so he can update your contact information. And we have David Hotchkiss as well to kind of help answer some of the specific questions during the Q&A part. So if we're ready, we're going to get rolling here. And my first year, last year, we actually had pulled the trigger on a PSPS in October and in November, where there was going to be potential PSPS shutoffs. In October, how many people in this room were impacted by the public safety power shutoff? Raise your hand. So a good amount. I also want to make sure there was an actual outage in Middletown of 2,600 customers during the PSPS, so that may have impacted you, and that was not an actual PSPS. But anyways, so people are always asking, what are we supposed to be looking at as community members when PG&E is calling a PSPS? And it's not just a red flag warning. It actually comes down to 5 different criteria. You're looking at humidity levels that are 20% or lower, combined with winds that are forecasted to be 25 miles per hour over a certain amount of time, as well as wind gusts up to 45 miles per hour or more. The other thing that we're looking for are conditions of the dry fuel and the vegetation in the areas, and on-the-ground real-time observations. And on-the-ground real-time observations is a really important talking point, actually, because PG&E, since the October 2017 fires, has been investing a lot of money into their infrastructure, and one of the ways that they've done that is by installing weather systems on poles throughout the county, and that's actually all public information. There's a website that you can get these the weather updates from these specific weather stations that were installed. There were 12 new weather stations that were installed here in Lake County, and PG&E is actually planning on installing 1,300 more throughout their service area, meaning Lake County is definitely going to be getting much more of those weather stations, and it allows us to really get the microclimates of the different areas of our service territory, so that really helps us out. People are asking, so where is all this information going to? And PG&E, after the 2000, excuse me? The website is Mezzo. I got it in the talking points. Hold on one second. Do you know the exact website for the weather stations? It's mezzo.utah.edu or something like that. But
Meso West, I think it is. If you just search that in Google, It's through Utah State or University
yeah.
of Utah, and you can get to it. We can pull it up before
We'll pull
we
it
go.
up in a couple seconds. I actually have it as one of my bars on my Google
Do
Chrome.
you want to walk with this thing?
I could, but
So let me speak on this real quick, some of the weather stuff. Good morning, Dave Hotchkiss, PG&E, Public Safety Specialist. I did 32 years in the fire service. Southern California, Mendocino County, and Shasta. I have a pretty good breadth or knowledge of fire history, how fires burn throughout the state, and that leads right into this and some of the fire weather concerns. Today we're under a red flag warning in Lake County and most of the northern Sacramento Valley. But we're not in the public safety power shut-off mode, and that's because the wind, it's, gusting to 25 to 30, but it's not the 45-mile-an-hour gust. PG&E has a pretty robust meteorology department where they have 3 or 4 people that do exclusively fire weather stuff in the summer. And they're looking at this daily, multiple times a day. So not every red flag warning is going to trigger going into the power shut-off mode. The other piece to this is conditions of the fuel. We had a wet spring, right? A lot of the brush is still flowering or is flowered and now is starting to start into its dormancy. It's not ready to burn yet. We had a fire in Yolo County just east of here 2 weekends ago, and when the wind quit and that fire, the sand fire, burned into the brush fields, it pretty much slowed down and just kind of ran fingers, some of the draws where it could gain heat, and pretty much just slowed down and they could get around it that way. So it depends on time of the year, fuel conditions, and what the weather's doing. It's a whole encompassing piece on when we get to this point.
So this is a real quick slide, actually. This is the California Public Utility Commission high fire threat map. And you can actually Google CPUC high fire threat map and find out if you live in a tier 2 or tier 3 fire zone, which most of Lake County customers and residents actually do live in either a tier 2 or tier 3. The most important thing about this is that when PG&E is looking at shutting down the power, they're actually looking at the lines that are going through tier 3 or tier 2 zones. And what that really actually means is that even if you don't live in a tier 2 or tier 3 zone, your power is still at risk of being shut off due to a PSPS because your electricity may be fed by a transmission or distribution line that goes through those high fire threat zones. This is the communication part. So last year we've been telling people we want to give people 48 to 72 hours notice before the PSPS is triggered. And some of you found out last year in October and in November that we were only able to give you 36 hours. And a lot of that has to do with the weather patterns changing. Again, it's not just the weather watch and the red flag warning, it's the humidity levels and wind patterns that change pretty significantly, which is why we were only able to give the customers last year a 36-hour notice. There's an echo going on here. Maybe because David has the other mic? Okay. Thank you. All right, so the protocol here, and this is why if you haven't done this yet, updated your contact information, you can do this with Zach before you leave today, but you will be getting a emergency alert from PG&E within 48 hours of a potential public safety power shutoff, letting you know that the electricity is going to be turned off. And then at 24 hours, you will receive an update letting you know that the power may be shut off. Just before, and Lake County is an excellent example that we've used because at 5 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, I called the Office of Emergency Services for Lake County, Sheriff Martin, and your county administrator at 5 p.m. and let them know we were going to shut the power off. But because there's protocol and a procedure, it's not just turning a switch off that shuts all the power off. They have to go through some protocols, and the power was not actually shut off until 8 p.m. So there's still a buffer zone from the time that you received that alert saying your power will be shut off now to when that power is actually shut off. So that's a big warning. During the public safety power shutoff, you will also receive notices letting you know the ETA, estimated time of arrival for our crews to start going out and inspecting lines, and then the estimated time of arrival of restoration, meaning when is your power going to come back on during the actual outage. And then again, once the power has been restored, if you left your home or if you left the community, you will know when your power is back on at your house. David, if you can go to the next slide, we're going to talk about how do we actually turn the power back on. So during the event, our team actually has to wait until the weather system has passed the territory that we've turned off. Meaning for the county of Lake, last year we shut it off at 8 p.m. on Sunday, and Monday at 6 a.m. we were already out inspecting every inch of the lines. So our crews have to normally wait if it's an overnight event, and they usually start working when it's safe to, and that means that there has to be sun out, so around 6 in the morning. And once that starts to happen, they start to patrol and inspect the lines, and we have to patrol and inspect every single inch, whether that's a helicopter or crews who are going around to make sure that none of the lines snapped, none of our infrastructure was impacted, and because if we turn the power back on and there's broken lines, that can cause sparking, which can cause wildfires. So when our team identified damages, which last year during our PSPS in October, there were 24 to 30, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but there were instances of infrastructure damage caused by vegetation. So what our team is able to do is they isolate the outages, so that way they prioritize hospitals, critical and essential facilities as first areas to start re-energizing. So what happens actually is they're also able to isolate the damage that's done. So you may live in an area that's not damaged and get your power sooner than maybe somebody that lives 5 miles down the road because they're on another electricity grid that is damaged, if that makes sense. Once it is safe to restore the power for, like I said earlier, 70% of Lake County in October within 24 hours was back on, given the public safety power shutoff. And it took us 36 hours to get everybody back on in Lake County in October of 2018. So that is what we're doing when we're going around restoring power. And then we're notifying customers. I have not heard having to unplug your technology and your equipment, but I would actually defer that to a fire department who knows more about that type of safety, or David.
If you run a computer, if you run it on a power strip, it's not a bad idea to shut that down, right? Because those are the most vulnerable components you're going to have, right? The refrigerator, it's used to the power, whether it's, cycling on its own, or if the power goes out, it shouldn't fry the motor in it, right? The computer, your TV, stuff like that are probably more vulnerable. It's not a bad idea. I do it in a thunderstorm, right? Because that's when you could get a power surge, okay? But as far as doing that across the board, everything,
No worries.
Can I just say why we're going here first?
For sure.
Okay. Fire season's changed, right? Everybody in here knows that. It's a month. Ask the guys in back in blue. It's a month, 2 months longer every year. It's crazy, right? From when I started, from when I was a kid in Southern California. The fuels, the rates of spread, the fire behavior in Northern California is more like the South than when I first came up here 15, 18 years ago. So this is a tool PG&E's using to minimize fire starts, the public safety power shutoff. Because we as a company as communities, as a state, cannot do another campfire, period. It killed 85 people. It burned 14,000 homes. I mean, that's unheard of. The Tubbs fire was 5,000 or 6,000, and that was the year before, and that's unheard of. So this is a tool the company's going to use to minimize fire starts. There's still going to be fires. CAL FIRE stats show about 10% of wildland fires are utility company caused, right? Whether it's Edison, PG&E, San Diego Gas and Electric, Pacific Power, way north. So it's a tool. The company doesn't want to do this. The PG&E yards, their main goal is to keep power on and running. And the guys are pretty good at that. So this is a whole new shift to try to minimize fire starts and not have a start from a start that ends up as a catastrophic fire.
Thanks, David. And just to let everybody know, the website for those weather stations, because I saw a lot of interest in that, is actually MesoWest, which is MESOWEST.Utah, UTAH.edu. And that actually gives you pretty accurate weather information for the areas that you live. And then there's also the other thing that I didn't mention earlier also was that PG&E is also looking at installing high definition cameras, 600 more by 2022. There's a few here in Lake County, and last year they did install one more, and they're looking at installing much more than that for the citizens of Lake. Going back to the public safety power shutoff, once we're able to notify customers that their power is back on, that pretty much concludes the PSPS. And David already alluded to this. This is a strategy of last resort, and it's not the only thing that PG&E is doing currently to try and harden the system, to make our infrastructure safer and more resilient to combat the changing climate. And there's a couple things that you may have already seen in your communities where PG&E might have vegetation crews out inspecting the lines and trimming the vegetation around our electricity lines. You may have seen helicopters or crews going through, changing out poles, making them more resilient, installing metal and other types of material poles so they're less likely to burn during a wildfire. You may have also seen a lighter, thicker, whitish gray color line, which is what we call tree wire, but they're reconductoring lines in the high fire threat zones to make them tighter, but also to prevent them from arcing. And if you notice, the older lines might be a little skinnier, and when the trees run in or vegetation runs into those, they're more likely to snap and start sparking. These new tree lines actually, the only downfall about this is when a tree does fall on those lines, if the tree's heavy enough, it'll take down a bunch of poles, but the actual line does not snap, which is a lot safer, or it's less likely to snap, which is safer for our communities. The other thing that they have been looking at, we were talking to some of our customers here in the room. PG&E has been doing beta projects for undergrounding in certain areas of their territory. They're looking at that. That's on the table. And one other thing is that every time that we've implemented one of these public safety power shutoffs, we have been able to get better at doing them in communicating in just internally and externally. But one of the things that I do want to mention is last year in 2018, October 2018, when we did execute the first PSPS, there was around 12,500 customers that were impacted by that PSPS. And then in November, when we started the protocol to conduct another PSPS, our engineers and our team were able to reconfigure and sectionalize the lines so that only around 6,500 customers were going to be impacted in November, which is good news that they're able to figure those types of things out with our technology. So that's kind of a quick update on the public safety power shutoff. So I'm going to give it back to Director Comiskey so we can do some questions and answers.
All right, folks, what we're going to do is this, I'm going to walk around with the cordless mic, and if you got some questions, please feel free, because we have Dave and Herman here are going to be able to answer them. I failed to also mention that we have some water and I believe some sodas in the back if you all are thirsty, because it is pretty warm in here. And what we're going to try to do is what we want to do is keep this informative. If you have a grievance with PG&E, this won't be the event to have that. You can have that offline, but what we're here is to work collaboratively as a community to make sure we're prepared and be able to make it through these events. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and throw your hand up and I'll come around with the mic.
Also, there are PSPS flyers on the table as you're leaving that has the contact information. If you have any questions regarding wildfire safety, there's a phone number that's specifically created for wildfires, and that's 1-866-743-6589. It's on the flyers. I'm only reading it because I know that they're streaming this live on Facebook. So it's 1-866-743-6589, and you can call for more information on the public safety power shutoff or anything to do where there's vegetation management around your property, or to learn more about how to be prepared for these events. So we'll go to questions now.
That actually does cover the question I was going to ask. I had a tree marked on my property, and that's all that's happened is just a tree marked. And I'm wondering if and when that will be taken care of.
That's a great question. So that would be an excellent opportunity to call that phone number.
Yeah, I'll do
but
that.
if you and I can talk offline, I can get you some more resources.
Great, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I have two concerns. I'm not sure that they can be addressed by PG&E. They're really more community concerns. Because of the information put out by PG&E, instead of just a transmission line shutdown as we saw last year, they're also planning on the very strong potential of shutting down the distribution points, which will mean it could possibly be a multi-county area. Now, in that case, I know that PG&E has addressed stuff like people who need insulin and recommending that they have ice on hand to keep the insulin safe. However, the first concern is for people who have prescriptions. If the outages are lasting between 5 to 8 days, which is what PG&E is forecasting, you are not permitted to stockpile your prescriptions, and if they're life-saving, if you're on a 30-day prescription, you're only allowed to order it 5 days in advance. 90 days, 8 days in advance. If you do not have the adequate time to put those prescriptions in and get them filled before the power shutdown, there will be a large number of people who may have critical illnesses needing the prescriptions that will not be able to get their prescriptions filled. And unlike the Valley Fire, where there was a gubernatorial directive that allowed other pharmacies outside of the area to fill prescriptions, the government has said that these power shutdowns will not be declared an emergency, ergo no gubernatorial directive that will allow pharmacies outside of this area to fill prescriptions. So I think the community needs to be aware of that and how to deal with it. The second area is in the area of Meals on Wheels. There's about 500 elder and infirm citizens in this county that get their main nutrition from Meals on Wheels. In a general county or multi-county-wide shutdown, those facilities will not be able to work, and we will have something in the neighborhood of 500 people without the support system needed that will not get the nutrition they need. Now, for most of us who are younger, we can go a week without eating and be okay, probably lose some weight. But for these older and infirm people to go even 5 days without nutrition can be life-threatening. So that's another thing the community as a whole is going to need to have to look at and deal with.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate those comments. And just something I wanted to touch on that I didn't do in the presentation was for medical baseline customers, there's a special protocol that PG&E is going to be doing if possible. And it's basically if you're a medical baseline customer, which you pay a special rate to be in. And you can talk to Zach to find out more information about that if you're not set up for that yet. But we have kind of similar to what a robocall is, where our customers do get a call, and if our medical baseline customers do not pick up that phone call, we have people who phone bank to try and get a hold of those customers during a PSPS event. And if they cannot get a hold of those customers during the PSPS event, we actually have people who go door to door and knock on the doors for customers who are medical baseline customers and make sure that they're aware that their power is going to be shut off. And if they don't open their door, we can't go inside and tell them. So we leave a door hanger letting them know the date and time or possible time that the power is going to be shut off. And that's for medical baseline customers. The other thing, I'm so sorry I didn't mention, because it's kind of the doom and gloom part of this year's PSPS, and that was that last year PG&E was only focused on 70 kV lines or lower as a threshold for shutting power off in Tier 3 and Tier 2 zones. This year, because of what happened in Paradise, they're even looking at everything, meaning over 500 kV transmission lines, which can be a much larger area being shut off from power, which is why it's so important to have a plan. So just, Chief Wing.
Just real quick, I heard the question about the senior centers and the Meals on Wheels. I want to thank you for that question, and I want you to know that I've been for a couple of weeks now, I've been talking to Supervisor Simon about that same question. He's not here to answer, so just talked to him about it again yesterday. There are multiple approaches. They've got estimates for generators. They've got estimates for solar. The county board of supervisors are working on local solutions, as well as the staff here locally are looking at maybe donations or solutions like that for the Middletown Senior Center. I believe the Clear Lake Senior Center, and Chief Cepeda can clarify, I believe that they last year got backup generator. Chief Cepeda, can you? Okay, yeah, they got a backup generator last year. I can't speak for the senior centers in the rest of the county, but that's definitely discussions are going on. Thank you for bringing that up, and they're working on multiple approaches for that. And I just want to answer that one question. Thank you.
The key to this whole topic we're having today is have a plan. Whether it's PG&E with a public safety power shutoff, whether it's a winter windstorm event, right? Have a plan on either having a neighbor to assist you, right? The backup generator, that's a major topic. The senior center, a place you can go to charge a cell phone, stuff like that. Try to have a plan before whatever the disaster is, fire, earthquake, winter storm, okay? And that's one of the main goals we're trying to push through this, is have a plan to continue through an event such as one of those. I live in a fire-prone area. My home's in Shasta County, surrounded by Tier 2. The power's going to go out, right? I've showed my wife how to fire the generator. We don't have the transfer switch, but she can drag an extension cord in and plug the refrigerator in. And our neighbor, right, next door, we collaborate with each other.
Hi, I live in Hidden Valley Lake, and last year I had solar panels put on the house. And I'm just wondering if when the shutdown occurs and you turn the power to PG&E off, can I leave the solar panels on and power my house?
Depending on the system, is it a battery?
No, it's a non-battery. All the excess goes to PG&E.
So those kind of systems function with the grid, and when the power's off, they quit feeding to it.
Well,
okay?
you have to shut them off separately.
If the solar panel's in the sun, it'll still draw power, but as far as running your whole house, and I'm not familiar with your system, but generally you need a battery backup that's rated to power your home.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Okay, there's three things that's very critical for me, and I hear from mostly seniors, because I am a senior also, is that when you shut off the grid last year,
Excuse me, ma'am. Shh.
when you shut off the grid last year, you did not give sufficient notification for those that do not have internet, do not get online. You didn't take care of the seniors. The county, when I called PG&E, they had no plan in place on where any senior could go for heat exhaustion. I went up to the hospital and I couldn't even get into the parking lot. And most of the seniors could not get in. So it's not only our responsibility to take care of ourselves, but the county should have a plan in place. It should be advertised and it should be distributed to all the senior centers and all of the public places like Safeway or whatever. Okay, when we had the power outage in October, you ran the hospitals, you ran Walmart, you ran all the restaurants, but you left all the seniors out in Burns Valley and everybody else without nothing. And we go through heat exhaustion. I had a CPAP machine I had to hook up into my car and sleep in my car with the dog for 2 days. Now I was smart, I always keep my tank full, and I have good mileage on my vehicle so I could keep my car running for 2 days. You're talking about 4 or 5 days, you're talking about people, you put a tag on someone's knob and that releases you of responsibility? No, it does not. Okay, you need to physically have the fire and police coming out, so if you got someone who's not responding, that's on your list, then they need to come out and find out if that person is going through heat exhaustion and can't get out the door. There should be, there's got to be plans in place for the whole structure. And on the PS, I'm sorry, but you took the power from the people who had the least resources to help themselves. Most of them were handicapped, most of them were on oxygens, and they needed power for their oxygen machines, and they couldn't even get into the hospitals to plug in. And the hospital did not even have any plans in place for alternative power choices. So unless you want to really get sued and have people dying the other way, you're going to get it. And you're going to be responsible because you can't just shut off the power to people without a plan in place on how to deal with those needs. And I'm sorry, a lot of people do not have the money to put out for a generator or a solar system. So you're going to have to find cooling centers or centers that can be opened up for them to sit down and crash out and live if they have to for a couple of days so they don't go into heat stroke and die. And then you're going to have also the needs of portable showering, portable needs, and medication is a big one for a lot of seniors. And until you start having all of your ducks in a row, you have no right to shut off on a PSPS and come up with a plan that's going to save your butt financially, but leave everybody else hanging. And I'm sorry, but you really need to get with the cities, the counties, everybody. For 50 years, PG&E has not done the vegetation and the equipment turnouts that they're supposed to do. And now we're supposed to pay the price for it with our life? I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments and feedback. I'm taking notes to take back to our team. So some of those comments there's people working on them, especially this year. 2 weeks ago when we did the PSPS for 20,000 customers outside of Lake County, they were able to set up what we are calling community resource centers. So it's a place where it's something like this where people can come to. There's water, some snacks. It's fully staffed by PG&E employees, and you're able to check in and get information on the actual outage. And those are things we're currently working on with different parts of your county. And just to let the community know, my main role is government relations, and we've been having the PSPS conversations since June 18th of 2018, because that's when I started working for PG&E, and that's what we started doing. And we had already been doing that. The reason why we're here today is because we were at a couple presentations with Chief Wink and Chief Comiskey, and they wanted us to do a presentation for the community and the residents.
Considering how many people are in this area, look at how many people people actually showed up because they had connections. But look at the numbers. How many people do not have those connections?
Right, ma'am.
The
And
people that need the most needs are not here today. They don't have the internet. A lot of them don't have phones. A lot of them don't have the money for the generators. They don't have the money or the camping equipment to take care of themselves. And the counties and cities have got to have a backup plan before you do kind of stuff like that. You don't put the cart in front of the horse.
Ma'am, if I could address that, they are. The county is working on this. But I understand. But we're trying. This is new to everybody. This is. Sorry. Ma'am, did you?
Thank you. I'm now handicapped and a senior, and I have trees on my property that are growing onto the lines, and I was wondering what I do.
you can call that wildfire number that we just gave. It's also on the flyers, but if you call them, they start a ticket, and it also depends on which level you live in, tier 2 or tier 3, because right now we're fully focusing our enhanced. So there's 6 different there's a bunch of different vegetation management programs. The enhanced vegetation management program is on top of our routine work that we've been doing. And the enhanced work would be most likely the one that would come on your property and address the trees. And it's really important that you call us and let us know that information so we can get you those resources. If it is our lines, because one of the main confusions is sometimes people confuse telecom lines with electricity lines, and those are less likely to start wildfires.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Could you please give the website or whatever it is for people, the Nixle alerts? Because whenever there's PG&E out, I get immediately an alert letting me know that in advance.
Absolutely. So I'm going to give the website out, especially because it's streaming online. It is pge.com/mywildfirealerts. All one word. And it's also on these flyers, and you can find that at pge.com, or you can Google My Wildfire Alerts. Or again, you can call the 1-866-743-6589 number to update any information if you do not have access to internet. Next.
I just want you to explain. I was surprised to find out that I'm not going to be able to flush my toilet. So I think y'all need to explain how we're supposed to deal with that. And my second part is, in all of your collaborations and in all of your budgetary conferences and meetings, has PG&E ever considered going into some kind of collaboration with all of us? For those of us that may be able to buy a generator, we should be compensated for some of that, because what happened with you guys is not our fault. And at the end of the day, we're being held hostage for something that we did not do. So I don't have $679, which is the lowest generator I found back here, to go and buy a generator. It means that I have to go into a fund that is my emergency fund. So why have you guys not thought about collaborating with all of us? You guys are getting bonuses, $11 million bonuses, this, that, and the other, and we're being held hostage. So is there some way you can take this back, since you're the community education officer, public information person, to figure out how you can help us so that we are not stuck with no medication, children that can't use their breathing machines, elderly that don't have water. This gentleman over here advised me to go buy dry ice and put it in my freezer. But if my freezer's not plugged in, how does that benefit me? So please let us know how we're supposed to flush the toilets, because a lot of folks, I was shocked that PG&E, how is that associated with my water? So explain how we're supposed to do that during all of this PSPS stuff that's going on.
So Sheriff Martin made an excellent suggestion a couple weeks ago. If you do have a bathtub, you are being warned 48 hours in advance that the power will be shut off, meaning you still have power for 48 hours. Sheriff Martin advised that he heard an idea where people were filling up their bathtubs with water to the very top, so then you're able to move water from the bathtub into the toilet to be able to flush your toilet. That's just one idea. But and the other thing you can do is if you have buckets or like what my girlfriend and I used was a bucket that we use to mop the floor. We fill that up with water and put it in the toilet to be able to use the toilet. Growing up in Guerneville, the power would always be out in the wintertime. So filling up buckets with water helps you flush the toilet. The other part of your question, I'm sorry I don't have a good answer for, but we're here today to address that second part of your question, to be able to engage and to inform the community about all the different things that PG&E is currently doing. And we can't do it alone, and we need the help of our community, and we have been engaging with your local government and your local stakeholders to be able to help you as much as possible.
I would just be happy if I had to put out $679. I would just be happy to hear that PG&E is willing to give me a $50 credit on my PG&E bill for the next 12 months. But just to say here, this is one shut off. 3 weeks from now, you might have another one. 3 weeks from now, you might have another one. And say, there's nothing that you can do to help me with that? That's like, not cool. It's a multi-billion-dollar company.
I'm wondering if PG&E has thought about or has in the process of implementing some sort of a program to help people that are medically dependent on electricity. And many of them are not mobile, so it's pretty hard, for some people to get up and go to some sort of a center. Is there some sort of a way that PG&E could work with the community to set up a program that would help to put generators into the homes of the medically...
I'm sorry, ma'am, to interrupt you. I can't really hear what you're saying. If I can ask the vendors and the people walking around to try and talk a little softer, I'm having a really hard time hearing the questions.
Okay, I'm wondering about PG&E working in collaboration with the community and with PG&E customers to set up some sort of a generator program for people who are medically dependent on electricity, many of whom are not able to get up and go to a center because they may have some disabilities, and that's why they're stuck on the ventilators, etc. It would seem like it would be a really good community outreach kind of a program for PG&E to work with those customers, so that there's many in Lake County, and they're stuck. They just need some help. Most of them are not the highest income people in the county. So if you could find a way to work with the community and set up some sort of a program, I think that would be very beneficial.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I am going to make sure that gets to our members. I know there's a lot of different conversations happening, but I appreciate the feedback, and we'll let our team know. Thank you.
Could you speak to the timeline for PG&E to clear vegetation from all of its lines, all of the threatened, particularly in the...
I can't hear what you're saying, sir.
Okay, could you speak to the timeline for clearing trees around power lines of all levels of voltage and service?
Yes, sir. I can definitely talk to the timeline. It's been an ongoing, routine management is ongoing, inspecting and vegetation management. There's a huge blitz. I want to say there's 7,100 miles of lines in Tier 3 areas, and that is what PG&E is currently blitzing and focusing on. That can take anywhere from 4 to 8 years. I don't have an exact number for you, but it's an ongoing routine vegetation management, and then the enhanced vegetation management is something that we're truly focusing in the higher fire threat zones.
In the first place, I want to thank you for coming here. I wouldn't want to have your job because there's a lot of people upset about this. But there are several things that we got to take care of ourselves, okay, basically. And I think in your neighborhood, you need to get with your neighbors and figure some things out about how we can communicate together if this does happen and have a contingency plan, number one. Number two, PG&E has got $1 gazillion. I know y'all got lawsuits and everything else. You know, how come somebody hasn't thought of, you know what, why don't we send information out to our customers, see how many of our customers could possibly buy a generator, pool that. You could get generators for next to nothing. If you need 10,000 generators, what kind of kick would you get on that? You would get a huge kick and pass that on to us so that we could afford generators. Nobody could think of that? Okay. Lake County isn't a rich county, okay? This isn't Marin County. There's a lot of people with issues here that don't have cars. And a lot of your elderly people don't have phones, okay? They have landlines. If they lose electricity, how are they going to be warned? How are they going to call? Because they don't know how to use cell phones. That's a big issue. Now, as far as communicating to all the people when this is going to happen, I know that there are emergency sirens here. I think something needs to be figured out, short blast, long blast, something, to let, you know what I'm saying, to let people know, oh, whoa, this is going to happen, so that they can take appropriate measures. And for people that don't know, if this is going to happen, get your milk jugs, get your mason jars, everything you got, fill your freezer up with ice. If it's not food, put ice in your freezer so your food don't go bad, okay? Fill up anything that'll, even baggies, anything that'll hold water, get it in there. If you know ahead of time that we're gonna have this, what you're saying is gonna happen, that would be a definite plus to keep your food safe.
Thank you for all your patience. But I'd like to know why your power, otherwise your transformers, will not take care of our power surges. And are you responsible for those surges that goes through your transformer to our place? I need an answer on that one. You don't? Okay. Sure. David, come up here.
You never have been a shy man.
Why won't your transformers take care of our power surges that you make?
Well, some of them will.
Some of them don't. Mine
I
don't.
hear you. It would depend on the surge, and I'm not an electrical guru. I'll tell you that from the start, right? So,
First of all, I'm not an electrical engineer or qualified electrical worker, so some of that I don't know. Some of the system can absorb surges, right? But other ones we don't have control over. That's about the best way I can answer it.
For those surges that come into our property and stuff out.
Some of them aren't PG&E's doing. Well, but the draw on the system isn't always ours.
Can we take it offline and maybe we can get your contact info and get a better answer for you?
I'd like to address the power surge conversation, and you brought up the fact, do we need to unplug our appliances? I was in Sears Appliances a few months ago looking at a refrigerator, and she said that they replace a lot of refrigerators in this area due to power surges. So if I were you, I would definitely unplug my appliance.
So I have a question that's specific for PG&E in California. So there's a product called GeneraLink that's an automatic generator switch. Is that California approved for PG&E? And will PG&E install them without any additional charge?
I'm going to ask our PSS guy.
You're talking a transfer switch.
Yeah, so GeneraLink sells a switch that requires PG&E or your local power provider to unplug the smart meter and then to plug in an automatic transfer switch and reinstall the smart meter. So it's a 15-minute job for PG&E if they show up to install the transfer switch, which has a surge protector built in and automatically makes sure nothing backfeeds to the power grid. That would give you access to all the circuits in your home if the generator can supply enough juice.
Okay, quick question on the this style of transfer switch at the meter. It's not currently approved by the National Electrical Code, even though it's UL listed. The National Electrical Code is also NFPA 70, right? They kind of mirror each other. Through the Jim and Chief Wink, I sent that info up through our chain, and it's at our engineers now where they're looking at that specific device. But as of now, that's not approved on the PG&E system.
That's not approved for use in California as of today. Anywhere that's supplied power through PG&E.
Correct. I can speak for PG&E, right? But we're looking at it, and the engineers are looking at other options similar.
So in Lake County, here in Lake County, pretty much everybody is dependent on their electricity, hot water. My house, we have no natural gas, we have no propane, electricity is used for everything. If we have 5 days with no power, that means no hot water. You know, I've got an asthmatic child, I have to make sure that I have power available regardless. So the time difference between having something like that installed and the time between getting an electrician up with all the demand is excessive. Hence my questioning.
And I understand that. I'm in the same boat at my place, right? Everything runs on electric. And if that switch is something that's viable, I'd look at putting it in. But right now, it's not.
But I can't get a response from PG&E.
They won't put it in for you. Or they're not going to put the meter back in if you install it, as it is now.
So I'm forced to hardwire.
Or run the cord in the house to the stuff you need to run.
Yeah, but 220.
Ladies and gentlemen, just one of the things that was just brought up, definitely consult a professional when you're installing, and make sure if you are installing any generators at your home, use a professional, because there's a lot of, it can be a very dangerous process.
So I'm a new medical professional here in this community. I moved from another state. I'm wondering, as someone who's working with the poorer population, if you have a suggestion on things I can do to help them come up with a plan, or that type of thing. Because I know a lot of people are actually transported by bus to our facility and do not have a car to get to these other potential spots to get water or stuff like that. So do you guys have a suggestion for the medical community to help these people out? Again, this is something completely new for me. I've never lived in California.
So her question was about working with hard to reach communities and medically fragile communities, and we do have information to share with you that you're able to share with your members. And we've been working with First 5 Lake County and other social services nonprofits to be able to connect with them and share information in English, Spanish, and other languages to be able to get the information so they can develop their plans and be ready. And somehow, I heard you were saying your members are sometimes transported in buses. So being able to coordinate a bus service would be on your would be a good project for your nonprofit or organization to work on a plan on, if there's a power outage, how do we continue to serve our customers. But I do have flyers that I could digitally share with you if you want to give me your card or email.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you can hear me over the crowd, what we're going to do is the PG&E reps will still be here for a while. I think we've kind of lost the crowd. So I want to thank each and every one of you for showing up today on behalf of the South Lake County Fire District. I want to thank PG&E, our CAL FIRE partners, and everyone and the vendors for showing up. Please visit the vendors, talk to the PG&E reps, and again, whatever we can do from a fire district, we will. Thank you for coming.